in addition to trying to, you have to seek him out. And in one of the passages, yes.
There is something after which is very sweet. It says, is it possible for a child to ask his father for bread and he gives him snake? That means whoever seeks sincerely, that God will...
Oh yes, yes. Is it possible for a child to ask for bread and he gives him what?
A snake.
He gives him a snake?
Yeah, he says, is it possible? Trying to say that God loves mankind.
Has anybody's father ever given him a snake instead of bread? No. So,
and I remember my father saying, not only if a child asks for his father for bread, not only will he give the bread, he will put some butter and jam on top of it.
Right, okay. So this is another thing that we have to understand, that God is something we have to seek out. We can't just, say, okay, I don't see him, he's not in my face, so, he must not exist. You must seek him. The next thing I find is that it says we must find God within ourselves. Find him within us. This is another great principle of God, that you don't have to look through the seven seas and all over the earth and everything. God is right there dwelling within inside you. He says, turn your sight unto yourself and you'll find he's standing within you, self-subsisting. And then that leads to another concept, and that is that we need to prepare ourselves to contain God. To compare ourselves to contain God. I had read a passage recently in some Baha'i scriptures. It said, thy heart is my home, sanctify it for my descent. Did I read that quotation to you one time? He said, thy heart is my home, sanctify it for my descent. In other words, your heart is God's home. And he says, clean it, sanctify for my descent. And when I first read that, it reminded me of the fact that I personally, the only time I've ever cleaned my house is when someone is coming to visit. It's just, personally, are you any of you like that? The only time you ever, Ziba's not like that. She don't clean her house. But there's a lot of people, and I'm one included, that if someone's coming to visit, I clean the house. Isn't that right? Because you people are coming and they're going to visit. And that's what God's saying. He says, your heart is my home. Can you clean it up so I can come and visit? And even Ziba, I will admit, she's a very clean. She's like a. If someone's going to come to the house, she cleans it even more. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
You clean it even more. Sometimes I have a really messy house, so messy, and then someone's coming to visit, and I say, oh darn it all, I have to clean the house because they're coming tonight. So I clean. The house is so darn clean that I feel good. I feel proud. Have you ever been like that? And they come for half an hour and they go away. And then for a week later the house is clean and I'm feeling so good. And I'm so thankful that they came to visit because it forced me to have a better life because I enjoy the cleaner house. And so this is what he's saying. He says, prepare yourselves for me. And he refers to you as his temple. He says that the human being is the temple where God's Spirit dwells. You, the human temple. And he says, sanctify the temple. In other words, there are buildings that are temples, but every human being is a temple. And that we clean and sanctify that temple, and then the Spirit dwells. In the same way that in architecture, if you don't build it right, and it's not going to fulfill its function. Would that be true?
Yes.
If you build anything, if you build a restaurant, if it's not designed correctly according to what is the right way to eat and how many chairs and how many seats in the right space, it's not going to function right. He's saying the same thing is true. He's not going to come to you if you do not sanctify yourself to a certain way. But if you do sanctify yourself, the light will come and dwell within inside you. So I guess that is the answer to your one, because you said obey all of his commandments. Is that what you said? Which I didn't even have. I have to add that to my list.
So we got to go and sanctify our heart and clean up.
Time
is up.
Oh, time's up. Okay. So this is the concept. So now I want you all to try and just keep the concept that God is with us. This is all I want to say today when we're talking over dinner, is that we probably are not conscious that God is with us. There's a word in religion called theophany. Has anyone ever heard the word theophany? That's interesting. Raise your hand if you haven't heard the word theophany. Isn't that interesting? Because the word theophany occurs all the time in ancient religions and in biblical study and so on. Theophany means a manifestation within the world of God. And if you go in the Bible, anytime there's a story that God appeared or did something, like God did this to these people or he showed himself, they call it a theophany, because it's a feeling of the presence of God, that God is interacting here in the physical world. It's called a theophany. And if you
How do you spell it?
Theophany. Theophany. Theo and phany mean thought. I didn't say the last part very nicely, but theo, it means thought. If I have an epiphany or a euphony, in other words, any kind of thought, it's a thought that's impregnated with something. And a theophany is a thought that's impregnated that God exists. Okay, we are living in a world in which there's hardly any theophany within us. Only if I turn on certain TV shows on Sunday morning, and certain ministers say, you know, God did this and he did that, and God said this and so on. But the majority of us go through life not feeling like God is playing any role in our life. And just to be aware and conscious of his presence is a major step forward in the science of spirituality. Just to actually have a sense of theophany, that today God is in my life. God is ruling my life. God is greater than those people. God is here. He can help me. There is a divine force that I can draw upon, a power that's greater than me. All of these concepts are very, very important to know that they are there. So I want to just leave you with that thought. Are we going to have a meeting, or Steve, are you going away next week? Is next week canceled because of your hospital visit?
You know, I'm leaving Tuesday next week. But if you want, you know, Noelia can be here, and since you're leaving on the...
But I'm leaving like, I think,
2 days
Wednesday
later.
or Thursday. I'm not
in
quite
that
sure.
case, why don't we skip next week and the following week?
Because Eva is going to the hospital.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a 2-week break.
2-week break, and the third week I'll write everyone.
The third week.
And,
So
Tom is not going to be here.
I won't be here for for 2 of those 4 weeks. In other words, 2 weeks will take off. Then you'll have 2. But we're going to I'm going to make readings from all the religious scriptures, and we're going to have them and print them.
Oh, you're going to do it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll help you.
Okay.
And then we're going to read them together as a group, and people are going to discuss them. And it seems like Steve is going to know more about it than everybody else, because he seems to. You seem to understand these things. I'm joking. Everybody, and it'll be very interesting. It'll be a discussion, and Farzin will make sure that it never lasts more than 59 minutes and 59 seconds. And I'm going to go to Holland and to Ireland and to England and to the Czech Republic, and then and come back. And I'll bring you some photos back, and maybe some bread from Holland, because it's so delicious, bread and cheese. So there won't be any sessions next 2 weeks, and then in 3 weeks from now.
I have a question. Patty asked me this, she said this, and it's, I didn't know how to say. She said that whenever we are here, that's the way I feel also. After the meeting, I have a feeling of peacefulness. Why?
Oh, because you're tired.
No,
I'm joking.
there are days when I'm sick.
Yes,
but when I'm in this surrounding, I feel good. Why?
Well, who wants to answer? I think that anytime you talk about God and spirituality
It's
and
because they
virtues,
had a theophany. No, what is it? Theophany.
yeah, it's a theophany. In other words, yeah, you're conscious of the presence of God. Maybe that's what it
That's
is.
what they had.
It's just like a plant feeling the sun. For you know, an hour or so, we're enjoying something, because we are spiritual beings, and our soul needs to be fed just the same.
I think it's also because your soul is so neglected in everyday life. Like he was saying, unless you turn on TV on Sunday morning and you're hearing a preacher talk and tell the stories of Jesus, and also talking about faith, as your soul, it's like when you work all day and you realize at 9 o'clock at night that you haven't eaten anything, which happens to me all the time. And it's the same with your soul. You come to the end of the day and you realize that your soul hasn't been spiritually fed anything. And so I think when everybody sits down, regardless of religion or whether you believe in a religion or not, everybody has a spiritual aspect, and this is like you're finally feeding yourself something, and your spiritual stomach is satisfied. I think that's why you feel so good, is that you're not thirsty or hungry anymore. You're satisfied. I mean, we're also physically satisfied, but it's...
And Melissa pointed out that, Jesus said, where 2 or more are gathered in my name,
Yes. Yes. So there is. We haven't talked about this, but community or the gathering of people create a different kind of life form. It's actually a form of life, and as you said, Jesus mentioned that. And so it could be that also because spiritual brotherhood or camaraderie or fellowship also is very soothing to the soul, because you're connecting to a higher form of life. Yes.
And this definitely fits under the category of uplifting conversations.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Yes.
Can we say a healing prayer for Ziba, please, tonight?
Oh yes, now Ziba's going into the hospital next week.
She's not going to hospital. She's going to a clinic.
Either
Yeah, but
way,
it's not a hospital.
Oh, it's not a hospital?
It's a clinic.
that's a clinic.
There is a hospital.
There's a hospital attached to it, so.
Oh, she's going to a clinic
We
for
don't plan to go to the hospital.
but
Maybe they might want, so we don't know.
we have no idea, but we do know
Either
that
way.
Ziba has not been able to shake this
Yes.
this illness for how long?
3 months, 4 months?
3 months, 4 months, yes.
April.
So
say healing
so you go ahead and say the healing prayer.
Sandra?
Oh, can you chant it?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, we'll have a song.
And if I think I've sung this one before, so if anybody knows it, please sing. Carmel. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. 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 And remembrance of thee is my remedy, and nearness to thee is my hope. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. And thy mercy to me is my And thy mercy to me is thy healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Verily, thou art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, and the all-wise, the all-knowing, and the all-wise. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. Thy name is my healing, oh my God.
Thank you very much for coming. There is tea, coffee, cake, fruit. Who's that? What is this? Maybe it's mine.